Hey everybody, it's Joe, and it's time for what I think is going to be pretty much the last lesson in the Absolute Beginner's Guide and the How to Start Here in Blender's Guide, because after this lesson, you should know everything that you need to know to get going in Blender. You will no longer be an absolute beginner. Now, if you haven't been following along from the beginning, I'll put a card in the video right here so that you can jump in. But remember, this is a follow along lesson, so I want you to have Blender open and following along. Now, in the last video, we kind of left it at a cliffhanger, but if you didn't save the file from last time, let's recreate it, because I didn't save it, and then I went to the East Coast Rap Festival, and that messed everything up. So here we go. We've got our default scene with the cube set up to be the floor here, and we're going to hit Shift A and add a cube, mesh cube there, and we're going to hit S to scale that cube up. Now remember to always be rotating your view, looking at things from different angles. Now remember that we added a modifier to this one. So on the right hand side with the blue tab that looks like a wrench, which is right next to my head right here, we go add modifier, subdivision surface, and we can crank that up once or twice. Remember, if your computer is not so fast that it can handle a high resolution mesh, go ahead and keep that at a low resolution until you're ready to end and be done. Just before exporting, you can go ahead and crank that resolution up and just put up with it there. And then we're going to add one more modifier, and we're going to look for the Boolean modifier right there. I think I might have had my head over the subdivision surface. I did. There it is, subdivision surface if you didn't see it before. And then Boolean modifier right here. And we're going to difference it out with the floor. Now our sphere it's smooth, or our cube is now rounded to a more or less sphere shape. If you look at it from above, it's not exactly sphere shape, but it's close to. Okay, let's grab that cube and let's hit G, Z, move it up into Z. Not all the way, but just enough so that it's got a flat bottom and perfect. We've got gentle overhangs. We'll talk about overhangs and things in the future, but that is a perfect place to start. Now that we've done that, we need to start doing some edit mode. This is the new stuff. You ready? So we talked a little bit about entering edit mode, and do you remember how to do that? If you don't, there's of course three ways to do it, as there are in most things in Blender. One is way over here in the upper right hand of your 3D view. You have a drop down that will let you go from object mode to edit mode to all of the rest of those. You could also hit Control Tab and it pulls up the radial menu that lets you choose which mode, and we want edit mode. But myself, I just like to hit Tab. Tab, tab takes you straight into edit mode. That was tough for me to say. Okay, now we're in edit mode, and again, we've got all these vertices. The vertices are the corners, the points of our shape. And you'll notice that while the modifier is changing the shape, the underlying geometry here in edit mode remains a cube. And we're going to edit this underlying geometry and let the modifiers do their work outside of that. So we've got the vertices in the corner. We've got the lines when you have two vertices connected. That's a line or an edge. And then at least three vertices, but four for this one. And you get a face or a polygon in other programs. And again, we talked about you can move them around, scale them, do all those things, but we're not going to worry about that. We're going to learn some new editing commands here, because while this is okay, we need to be able to generate new geometry. And the first thing that I want to teach you is to extrude. So I want you to grab either the 4 points on the top or hit 3 to go to face select mode and select the face on the top. But either way, you've got to select the face on the top, and we're going to extrude. You get to extruding either through on the top of the 3D view. Notice that menu that we used to be looking at over there on the top of the 3D view has changed. And now it says View, select, add, mesh, vertex, edge, face, and UV. We'll get to exploring those in the future, but right now in mesh, I want you to hit extrude and extrude faces, or notice it's just E. We'll get a lot of practice using E for that one. And once you extrude, you can move your mouse up and down. If you go down, it really doesn't mess things up. Just go up. And there we go. We have added a new face on the top and new faces all around, and we've extruded it around, and we can make it bigger or smaller. Go ahead and scale that up just a little bit. I'll tell you right now, we're going to be making an octopus when this is all done, but let's just get started. So we've got down here is where all the tentacles are going to be coming out of, and up here is going to be the head of the octopus. Now I just hit GZ and moved it up a little bit. Feel free to adjust your model as you go. It's your model. You can make it however you want. Okay, so now we know how to extrude. We'll get some more practice with that later, but right now I want to show you guys how we can cut a face and add more geometry with something called a loop cut. Now, I didn't look for where the loop cut is before we started here, and I know this is one of those commands, so I'm looking for it while I talk. But this is one of those commands that I just know off the top of my head, so I'm not going to worry about where it is for now. We'll find it later. Yeah, we'll have to find it later. I'm just going to use the hotkey for it. It's Control R. You hit Control R, and then you move your mouse. And notice as you're moving your mouse, it's putting a yellow line, or maybe it's slightly different color, but it's putting a line showing you where it's thinking you want to cut. And you can put those all over the places, but here's where I want you to do it. Move it to between the top edges that's facing you, then click once. Once you click once, you can slide it to the left and to the right before you finally set it by clicking once again. But I'm going to hit right mouse click or alternate mouse click if you are old timey. But right mouse click just to say I want it to stay in the center. I want to cancel that slide. So there we go. We have added new faces. Notice how that changed the way the mesh smooth was working. It's now making our mesh a little bit more pill shaped, and that's because with more points, the mesh smooth modifier tries to hit like the center of each face. Well, we've created more faces for it to try and match to. So that is what we can expect. We're going to do another loop cut. Control R and do it kind of 90 degrees to the first one against the other top edge. So we're kind of crisscrossing here. And I'm just going to click in the middle. We don't need to loop cut this one. So now we've got a new edge around here. Now, why did we do this? Well, because we're making an octopus and we needed 8 faces on the bottom to extrude. So take a look. We got 1, 2 over here, 3, 4 over here, 5, 6 over here, 7, 8. Perfect. We can now make our octopus legs. I'm kind of planning ahead a little bit. But I want this to be just a little bit rounder shaped. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this loop, first loop that we made and the second loop that we made, and we're going to scale them out, just that part. How do we select just a loop? Well, we could do it by holding down Shift and clicking each one of the parts of that loop until we get the whole thing. That's not too bad with this model, but if we want to do a faster way, simply hold down Alt and Shift, and we're holding down Shift because we want to select the loop and what we had previously. So Alt and Shift and then click on any one of those lines and it automatically selects the entire loop. Isn't that a great technique to hold down Alt when you're selecting an edge? It will try and find the entire loop. Now as your geometry gets more complex, that might not work as well, but in this case it works great. Now we're going to scale this up. So hit S, start moving your mouse away, and notice how it gets rounder, but it's also getting taller. And we don't want that. We want it to just go out in the X and Y. So before you finish this move, hit Shift Z to confine it to just the X and Y. Keep moving it out until it looks as round as you want it. That's about good for me right there. There we go. We've got a good looking base for an octopus. But I'm going to switch over to point mode. So I'm going to hit 1 to go to point mode, and I'm going to select just that one vertex on the very tippy top of our octopus, and I'm going to G to move it up into Z, and I'm just going to give my octopus Nice little round shape there. Feel free to change the angle and adjust it the way that you want. Okay, that's looking pretty good so far. Let's start making some tentacles. Now, we're going to select any one of these faces around the bottom. I'm going to go to face select mode by hitting 3, and I'm going to select one of these faces down here. And I'm going to hit E to extrude this out. You can make that just as long as you want, but then I'm going to hit S to scale it down just a little bit. And I'm going to hit RZ to rotate it into Z a little bit. Now, this is going to be interesting. Now that I've rotated this face, when I extrude it again, watch what happens. E to extrude. And notice how it's extruding away from where that face was. Wherever you point that face, it's going to go the direction that that face is pointed. Let's scale it down again. And maybe rotate it into Z one more time and extrude it out. And scale it down. Okay, we've got a pretty good tentacle here, but if you look at it from the front or the side view, you might notice that it's kind of poking up above the floor. And I also made mine too big, so I'm going to exit edit mode by hitting tab real fast, scale the whole thing down just a little bit, move it down just a little bit, but I still got the end of that tentacle popping up out of the build plate. So how do we fix that? Well, I'm just going to select the face at the end of my tentacle, and I'm going to hit in kind of front mode view. I'm going to hit GZ and move it down until it's in there. Now I want to select this entire loop. Just hit Alt and click the edge of it. Oh, I've got face select mode, so it's selected all the faces around that loop. That's no good. Let's hit Edge select mode by hitting 2. I'm going to hit Alt A to select nothing, and then I'm going to hold down Alt and select the loop in the middle of the tentacle. And in front view, I'm going to hit GZ and I'm going to move it down again. So now the whole thing is below the build plate. If I exit edit mode, the Boolean modifier will kick in. Boom, we got a perfectly flat little tentacle. That's pretty cool. Let's do another one real fast. So go back into edit mode, face select mode, select the tentacle next to the first one. And it can be to either side, that doesn't matter. Hit E to extrude it out, scale it down with S, rotate it into Z, E to extrude it out again, rotate it into Z, or well, rotate it into Z, and then scale it down, or scale then rotate, it doesn't matter. I want to do this in top view, extrude out, scale down. And I'm going to hit G to move it just a little bit. We can move, we can rotate, we can do anything we want with these tentacles, but don't overlap them. If you make your tentacles overlap so that they're in the same space, you'll have a problem that's called non-manifold geometry in your STL, and you'll have to fix it. It's easier just to keep the tentacles separate for now. All right, I'm going to go to front view. Sure enough, this tentacle's popping up out of the build plate. So I'm going to hit GZ, move it down, hit Alt to select. I need to once again go back to line mode and Alt A. And I want to rotate my view around so I can see, yep, sure enough, that edge is popping out. GZ, get it down. And then I'll go back out to edit mode real fast to check. That's a good looking tentacle. Now, I'm not going to finish this while we're here today. I'm going to let you guys do the other 6 tentacles. Wiggle them around however you want. Be creative with them. Do your thing with these tentacles. This is your tentacle octopus monster. So make it as fun as you would like. Do whatever you like with it. But I may have to do just one more so that we can have this discussion. Yeah, I'm going to just really quickly grab the face on the front. I'm going to extrude it out, scale it down. And I'm actually going to move it down. No, I don't need to move this one down right now. So rotate into Z. No, actually, I'm just going to hit G and move it into Shift Z. Then I'm going to extrude it out, scale it down, G into Shift Z. And I'm going to hit GZ, move it below the build plate. I'm going to do that as I'm going. Then I'm going to extrude it out, scale it down, GZ. It was already in the build plate. We're good to go. Okay, now that I've got my tentacles out front, let's work a little bit more on this octopus. Now what I want you to do is hit Alt A to select none. We're going to go into Vertex Select mode. What did I do there? My mistake. We're going to go to Vertex Select mode with a 1. And then now there are over here on the toolbar, way over there on the side, you'll see that we can have multiple selection tools. We can select just a single point, select the box, select with a circle, all really cool stuff. I can also do these with the hotkey. So if I hit B, I'll be selecting a box. And if I draw a box over all the points on the top of the octopus here, you'll see that we select them all at once. So box select is a very cool tool to know. However, you might want to rotate your view and you'll see, oh, I didn't select the points on the other side. Why didn't I do that? That's because we're using a mode where we can't X-ray through, and if we can't see it, we can't select it. So I'm going to go back to the side view. I'm going to hit Alt-A to select nothing, and I'm going to hit Z and choose Toggle X-ray. And now you'll see all these points down here I can see, and if I hit B to box select across all the points on the top and adjust my view, because X-ray was on, I could see through them, even though they were in the exact same spot. I could see through them and select them. So that's great. I had those selected. Now in the side view, we're going to just rotate this a little bit. Hit G to move it around just a little bit. Maybe I want to scale it up just a little bit. I don't know. Just making that kind of bulbous head of an octopus. This will look better once we get the other tentacles on, but that's good. We're kind of defining the shape of the octopus. I'm going to hit Z and toggle X-ray back off. Okay, so we've got our octopus shape here, but our octopus is missing a few things. Octopuses, octopi, they have eyeballs up front. So we're going to need to add some eyeballs right here on the front of the octopus. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, if we do another loop cut, we could loop cut it right here and maybe move it down. That'll kind of put it in the right area, but then it adds a whole bunch more loops around the outside that we don't really want. So I'm going to undo that. It would be great if we could just isolate the parts that we want, just put more geometry wherever we want, and guess what? Wouldn't you know? We can totally do that. There's a knife tool. Let me see if I can find the knife tool very quickly. I'm going to switch my select tool. Thank you. Much better. All right. Let me see if I can find really quickly the knife tool. Again, this is one that I just know from the hotkey. I will have to find out where it is later, but that's all right. No problem. Hit K on your keyboard. You are now in the knife tool. You notice your icon has changed to a knife. And if you move it to the edge of any of these edges, it kind of snaps to the edges. And if you move it right to the vertex, it snaps to the vertex. That's super cool. I kind of like that. I'm going to start at the vertex that's right between the octopus's eyes. Maybe I don't want to, maybe I'll slide out just a little bit. And if this is hard to see because the mesh smooth modifier is curving things around, you can really quickly move over here to the side and turn the mesh smooth modifier off for just 1 second. Do I need to get out of the knife tool? Yeah, let's escape out of the knife tool. Let's turn off the mesh smooth modifier. Okay, that's pretty good. Now we're going to hit Alt A to select nothing and hit K. And I'm going to start my eye. There's the center vertex. I'm going to start it just over here a little bit. I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to drag, just click, and then move your mouse, and you'll be drawing a line up. And then click somewhere up, and then go over to the side and intersect with the side there. Click it again, and then to finalize, if you don't do this, it won't make it permanent. You have to hit the space bar. And now that part has been drawn on there. I'm going to hit K again. I'm going to make another cut on the opposite side, the opposite eye, just a little bit off of that center point, up a little bit, click over a little bit till it snaps to the line on the side, click, and then hit space to finalize it. Now this one put an extra line in here. I'm going to see if I can dissolve that real fast. I'm going to go to Edge Select. I'm going to select that line. If you don't have this, don't worry about it, but I'm going to hit X to delete it, and I'm going to choose Dissolve Edges. We'll see if it lets me do that. It did. No big deal then. Fantastic. Yeah, you can clean up lines that you don't want. So we could have done the loop cut method and then just cleaned up the lines that we don't want. Dissolving tries to make the geometry around it become a part of it. And sometimes it doesn't work for a couple of different reasons, but this time it did, so no big deal. All right, go ahead to face select mode and select that eyeball face that we have there. Now that we got that selected, we extrude it out just a little bit, scale it down just a little bit, extrude it again, but this time I want you to extrude it in, which we can totally do since we scaled it in just a little bit, and scale that down. And let's turn on that Mesh Smooth modifier to see how this looks. Well, kind of looks like an octopus eye. If you don't like it, feel free to tweak it. I'm going to go into line select mode, select just that edge there, and I'm going to try moving it up. Maybe, oh, I stuck it out too far. Maybe I'll just try moving it back. All right, for now, we're going to go with this. We can fiddle with it more later. Instead, I want you to go ahead and grab the other eye. So grab that eye face, extrude it out, scale it down, extrude it back, scale it down. I didn't scale that down nearly enough, so we'll go to edge select mode and we'll scale it down again. I'm going to turn off the subdivision surface because I think that's too big. It doesn't matter if they don't match. Octopuses oftentimes don't match. But we're going to go ahead and move that up, just like I did on the other side. Let's see how that looks. Okay. Now there are lots of other tools for adjusting the geometry here. For instance, if I wanted to make this eye here a little bit flatter, and maybe I'll hit Shift and Alt while I select the other loop on the other eye. Now I've got both the eye loops. If I wanted to make them flatter, if I wanted to kind of like cut the edges off of that, it's called a bevel. And once again, I only know where it is from the hotkey. I'll have to find it later. If I were writing a book, I'd do this properly, but I'll just hit Control B to bevel and then move the mouse away and notice how it's flattening out those sides. If I do that, that also improves it. I'm going to exit edit mode. See, there's my octopus. It's looking rather good. I think those lines there could probably be moved around, but there's plenty of time for fiddling, and that is going to be your job. I want you to take this octopus, finish putting legs on it, make it your own. Now, at this point, you can no longer call yourself an absolute beginner. If you've been following along and if you've got this octopus, then you know everything that I knew when I first started with Blender. This was the point where I was creating objects in Blender that I was entering into contests. I made my cute Cthulhu using nothing more than the tools that you have. From here, you're no longer an absolute beginner. You might still need some practice. You might still need to keep working on it, but a beginner? No, no beginner at all. Congratulations. You've graduated. You've moved up to being an actual Blender user. I'd love to see what you do with Blender, even if it turns out silly. Remember, I've got a Discord channel. You'll find a link to it in the description. There's a What You Making channel, which is the perfect place to show off the 3D models that you make in Blender. I can't wait to see what you do, but I thank you guys very much. This is the end of the lessons that I'm going to be doing, but I will have more Blender videos in the future. But I want to thank you guys very much for following along to this point and congratulate you on doing such a good job. There's more to learn, but at this point, it's just a matter of sticking with it, using the tools more, and discovering a little bit at a time as you go. You've got everything you need to know, and I know that you can do it. As always, I want to thank you very much for watching and remind you safety first, because I care about you. I'll see you next time.